She was sleeping through every combat drill. While her squad fired rounds, climbed walls, and cleared rooms, Sergeant Victoria Hayes would simply sit down, close her eyes, and drift off like none of it mattered. Her squad despised her for it. Instructors marked her for dismissal. Everyone assumed she was broken, or worse, a fraud. But then, a SEAL commander showed up. He didn't review her scores. He didn't ask questions. He just shouted a single order across the range. And in that instant, the soldier they thought was dead weight became the one person no one would ever underestimate again. Before I tell you what those words were, make sure you're subscribed and drop a comment telling us where in the world you're watching from. Now let's get into it. The morning air tasted like diesel and determination, the kind that reminded you this wasn't a game. Sergeant Victoria Hayes stepped off the transport at 0530 hours, boots hitting cracked concrete that already radiated heat despite the early hour. The Advanced Combat Training Center stretched before her like a concrete maze. Rows of plywood buildings, shipping containers welded into kill houses, and obstacle courses designed to separate the warriors from the wannabes. Victoria was unremarkable in every way the military had taught her to be. Standard desert camouflage, auburn hair pulled back in regulation style. But if you looked closely, really looked, her eyes told a different story. They moved constantly, cataloging exits and angles like someone whose survival had once depended on seeing what others missed. "Sergeant Hayes reporting for advanced tactical training," she said to the clerk. "Barracks Delta, Bunk 12, chows at 0630. First formation at 0800. Try not to embarrass yourself." Victoria took her assignment and walked toward the barracks with the measured pace of someone who learned that rushing could get you killed in certain neighborhoods. The problems started immediately. At the rifle range, Victoria approached her firing position with textbook precision. Magazine loaded, stance perfect, breathing controlled. The range commands echoed down the line. "Shooters ready? Commence firing." 30 soldiers unleashed controlled hell downrange. Brass shells arced through the air, targets jerked under impact. Except at Victoria's position. She raised her rifle smoothly, sight picture perfect. For one heartbeat, it looked like she was about to engage. Then she lowered the weapon, finger never approaching the trigger. She stood there, staring downrange like she was listening to music only she could hear. When the ceasefire whistle blew, her target remained untouched. "Hayes," the instructor's voice could have cut steel. "You planning on shooting today or just enjoying the scenery?" "Ready to shoot, Sergeant," she replied with unnatural calm. "Then put rounds on target. That's why we're here." "Yes, Sergeant." Second string. Same result. Rifle up, perfect form. Weapon lowered without firing. Behind her, whispers spread like wildfire. Specialist Cooper shook his head in disgust. "Guess some people's records don't transfer." Private Blake smirked. "Wonder what else doesn't transfer." By evening chow, the nicknames had solidified. Sleepwalker followed Victoria through the mess hall. Dead weight got tossed around whenever she appeared in formation. The obstacle course was worse. Victoria's squad lined up at the starting line, adrenaline already pumping. The instructor briefed them with the enthusiasm of someone who'd watched thousands of soldiers discover their limits. 15 obstacles, 30-minute time limit. Fall behind and you'll run it again in full battle gear. Questions? The whistle blew. Soldiers scattered toward the first obstacle like someone had kicked an anthill. Victoria started at her same steady pace, reached the 8-foot wall third in line, then sat down cross-legged in the sand and closed her eyes. "Hayes," Cooper shouted from the other side, "what the hell are you doing?" She didn't answer, didn't move, just sat there breathing steadily while her teammates stared in disbelief. "Move your ass," Blake barked. "We've got a time limit." Other squads flowed around them, soldiers grunting their way over obstacles. Victoria sat motionless, hands resting on her knees, looking like she was meditating in a Zen garden instead of failing a combat course. When her squad returned 15 minutes later, uniforms soaked with sweat and sand, she stood up, dusted off her pants, and rejoined formation, without explanation. Austin ripped his helmet off, face red with fury. Outstanding. Hope the enemy waits while you take a power nap. Urban combat simulation was the breaking point. Multiple buildings, role players with paint rounds, the kind of scenario that separated real operators from pretenders. Victoria's squad assembled outside Building Alpha. Cooper checked his weapon one final time, already planning their breach. Blake, you've got the ram. Dylan, watch my 6. Austin, cover our back. Hayes. He paused, looking at her like broken equipment. Try to stay awake. The ram hit the door with explosive force. The squad poured through the breach, boots pounding on plywood floors. Victoria entered last, weapon ready, then immediately peeled off to a corner and sat down with her back to the wall, eyes closed. The simulation unfolded predictably. Cooper caught a paint round to the chest. Dylan froze when a role player appeared, catching paint to the shoulder. Blake fought hard, but the angles were wrong. Within 30 seconds, 3/4 of the squad was combat ineffective. And Victoria sat in her corner, eyes closed, breathing steadily while her teammates bled synthetic blood. Cooper stormed across the room, rage and humiliation twisting his features. You didn't fire a single round. What the hell is wrong with you?
Victoria opened her eyes and stood, brushing sawdust from her uniform. Rear security was maintained. We're all dead, Sergeant. Every single one of us. What good is rear security when we're corpses? The instructor stepped between them, expression equally grim. Hayes, this continues and you're gone by week's end. Show improvement or you're done. Yes, Sergeant, she replied, with the same unruffled calm she'd shown since day one. But something flickered in her eyes. Not defiance, not anger. Just a light switching on in a room that had been dark for a very long time. By the final evaluation, Victoria was legend for all the wrong reasons. 2 weeks of identical failures, sleeping through every drill, sitting out every exercise, watching her teammates fail because she wouldn't engage. Her squad lined up for the comprehensive urban assault simulation. Multiple buildings, armed role players, everything riding on the next 30 minutes. One more failure, and she was gone. Commander Michael Sterling's SUV appeared without warning, engine purring through the main gate like it belonged there. Government plates, tinted windows, the kind of vehicle that made people stop and pay attention. Sterling stepped out, and the entire training yard went quiet. Late 40s, weathered in ways that spoke of hard years in harder places. His uniform was crisp but functional, no ribbons for show. He walked straight to the observation post where Master Chief Rodriguez watched the exercise. Chief Rodriguez, I understand you have Sergeant Victoria Hayes in this rotation. Yes, sir. She's scheduled for dismissal. Her performance has been... I've read the reports. Sterling cut him off gently but firmly. I'm not here to challenge your assessment. I just want to see her run one more scenario. What kind of scenario, sir? Sterling's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. The kind where she gets permission to wake up. Inside Building Alpha, Victoria sat in her familiar corner while chaos erupted around her. Her squad mates were getting systematically eliminated by role players who knew every angle. That's when Sterling's voice cut across the training yard like a blade. Hayes. Victoria, eyes snapped open. Hayes, authorization code 77 Alpha, full operational status. Execute. The transformation was immediate and absolute. Victoria rose in one fluid motion, rifle snapping to her shoulder, muscle memory taking over like someone had thrown a switch. The lethargy vanished, replaced by something fierce, focused, and utterly professional. She flowed out of the corner like water finding its level, weapon tracking angles that hadn't even developed yet. When the first role player appeared, she was already engaging. Controlled pair, center mass, target down before he could bring his weapon to bear. Cooper, still sprawled with his fatal paint wound, could only stare as Victoria moved past him with surgical precision. This wasn't the same person who'd been sleeping through exercises. This was someone else entirely. She cleared the first floor in 90 seconds, transitioning room to room with tactical movement that gets taught at very expensive schools to very dangerous people. Every angle anticipated, every threat neutralized before it could develop. Upstairs, the role players were waiting with a complex ambush that usually shredded experienced squads. Victoria flowed into it like she designed the scenario herself. 2 contacts from flanking positions, she dropped both with precise shots. A third from concealment that should have been impossible to spot. She put him down while transitioning between targets. When Victoria reached the final room, the hostage scenario that had been stumping squads all month, she didn't pause to assess. She read the geometry in a glance and moved. 2 shots, both hostage takers down, civilians secured before anyone processed what happened. The exercise alarm sounded, but this time it was the long, clean tone of mission accomplished. In the debrief room, Sterling explained what no one else had clearance to know. Classified program, deep insertion teams, high-value targets in denied areas, perfect mission record, 0 friendly casualties, 100% extraction rate. Rodriguez looked at Victoria, who was methodically cleaning her weapon. So, what happened? Why the transfer? Medical rotation, she said quietly. Took some shrapnel on the last mission. Spent 6 months in recovery while command decided if I was still fit for the program. Recall operatives are conditioned to compartmentalize, Sterling explained. They learn to suppress combat responses until receiving proper authorization. It's a safety measure. Without the activation phrase, they function like any other soldier. With it, he gestured toward the window where Victoria's course record was being analyzed by instructors who couldn't believe what they'd seen. They become what they were trained to be. Cooper approached Victoria's bunk that evening as she packed, confusion and something like fear in his eyes. "Hayes, we didn't know. Why didn't you show us earlier?" Her answer was simple and devastating. "Because I wasn't authorized to." The next morning, Sterling's SUV disappeared through the gate like it had never been there. Victoria received orders to Advanced Training Command, Special Operations Cadre, not as a student, as an instructor. Some secrets were too important to forget, even when they were too classified to share. And in quiet moments afterward, one question remained. How many other sleepwalkers were out there, moving through the world with capabilities only a few people knew existed? The answer, like Victoria Hayes herself, remained classified. Have you ever met someone who seemed completely ordinary until they revealed what they were really capable of? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this reminded you that the most dangerous people are often the ones you'd never suspect, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about warriors hiding in plain sight. The wolf doesn't announce itself to the sheep.